classes, but
Some lessons learned.
Lessons learned. But to kick it off, we'll start with sponsors.
Yes. Do we have any sponsors here with us in the room?
Shane.
Shane is in the room. All right, cool. Shane, go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do.
Hey, so my name's Shane. I work with Central Lending. We do fix and flip loans, construction loans, and DSCR. So if you need a loan, come talk to me.
Awesome. Guys, if you're doing hard money loans to buy your projects, support our sponsors. They help us get cool coffee trucks, have cool events. They're a big part of what we do. We don't demand a lot of you as members, and a lot of that is because we have sponsors that help support the cool stuff that we're doing. So please, whenever you have business that has to do with one of our sponsors' businesses, please seek them first. We appreciate our sponsors.
We have two new sponsors actually on board. We have Sunshine Investor Fund, so they're transactional funding. So for the wholesalers in the room, if you guys need transactional funding, they are a subsidiary of Boss Law. So you can kind of do everything in-house. So if you need, your title and transactional funding kind of all in one
As
place.
low as 50 basis points, if that sticks out to anybody. So if you guys have ever done transactional funding, it can be 1, 1.25, 1.5, just for that one day of funding. So 50 basis points is basically free money. So if you run into a situation where you need transactional funding, reach out to Boss Law and the Sunshine Investors Fund.
That one's yours,
I
right?
think you guys can reach out directly. Like you guys can go through Amber to get whoever you need to get on.
I think I had
Sunshine
more
Investors
caramel on top.
REI staffing, virtual assistants for real estate professionals. So if anybody's looking for a VA, John Plumstead runs that. Then we have Goodwin Mortgage Group. So they are another mortgage company. They more specialize in conventional like home loans, refis, DSCRs, kind of more conventional financing, more of a conventional lender. I don't mean conventional mortgages, like they do FHA, VA, the whole 9 yards, but just more of a direct lender like that. And then state insurance, of course, too, is amazing for insurance. I'm not just saying that. We've used Ryan over at State Insurance for 10 years.
That's
so.
right. Yep.
Yep. All right, intros.
Actually, before we do intros, today is super special for me for a lot of reasons, right? But first and foremost, so Roberto joined the group. When we opened the group, this is, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and we just had this idea, and we opened it up. Roberto was, in the first week, was one of the first members. Roberto has showed up to every Friday call. He has been to every single on-site. He left his corporate job. He's a corporate guy like me. He left his corporate job, lost that identity, came into this investing space, had to become a construction expert. But what I love about Roberto's story is that what he did in this house, this first flip, is really a big part of what we're building here in the group. This group is for people trying to get in and trying to scale and grow, right? Investors at all levels, right? Roberto used the group for what it's for. He showed up on the Friday call, said, hey, I have a deal to analyze, guys. Can we look at it? He got the blessing not just from Keely and I, but from a few folks on the call. Hey, we like the deal. We say, yeah, you go for it. And you're going to see today, he's walking away with 75 grand in profit from a deal that he took action on like a boss, right? So it's cool to hear his story. We're going to hear all the good, the bad, the ugly, but most of all the success. And really, hey, if you have a vision, if you have a dream, get your ass in there and go for it. It can happen, right? So we're going to get that story today too. So I'm going to let Roberto introduce himself. Yeah, let's get a round of applause.
Thank you all for coming. I'm Roberto Crane. Lots of time in corporate world, finance, accounting, operations, medical device sales, entrepreneur. And I just feel like I wanted to bet on myself again. And so I decided to join this community and venture into real estate. And this is the first flip. So thank you.
All right, so like I said, we kind of took this full value chain approach with Roberto on this, brought the deal. Yeah, of course, he did his own due diligence, did his own research, found the opportunity. I know we kicked this one around a lot. It was like, hey, this is kind of a new construction, but it looks like an old bungalow, and it's got this flood zone thing. Do you guys like it? There's some things I'm worried about the floors. We'll go through all those little details. But I want to first, Roberto, take us through how you found the property in the acquisition process for the property.
Sure. So I initially was working with an agent, and I felt like the process was a little too slow. The communication wasn't controlled by me, and I'd like to have a little bit more control. So I ended up parting ways with that agent. He's a great guy, but I wasn't getting the results I needed to get. And so I stumbled upon this property, and I actually brought it. There's about 5 to 10 properties I was targeting. 5 I probably brought to the Friday calls, at least 5. This one was one of those properties I decided, hey, let's take a shot on. Yeah, that's how I found this particular property.
Did you find it on the MLS?
MLS.
Okay,
So
cool.
this was an MLS listed property. And then kind of jump to the financials a little bit, or no?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the negotiation process. So anything that stands out in the negotiation on this one? Was it fairly straightforward? I seem to remember there was a little back and forth.
So on this one, there was a lot of back and forth. When I started directly contacting the seller's agent, like they were telling me everything basically. And it was funny because she thought I was a real estate agent myself, and she was just giving me all the information. But the seller didn't accept our initial offer, and then I was still in communication with them. We went back and forth a few times. The buyer backed out of this property, and through our communication, she's like, "Hey, it's still available. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Absolutely, but my offer's now this." And so, and that'll go into the financials.
So you want a little bit lower at that point,
Yes.
right? Okay,
A lot lower, yeah.
So that's a pro tip, guys, right? Like, so supply and demand, I made you the offer, you didn't jump on it, now you're coming back to me, obviously, that price that I made originally, it no longer stands. Still want to do business respectfully, but I'm going to make a disrespectful offer. So here it is, right? That's how you catch deals, right? The whole business is not about making pretty houses, although this is amazing. It's about buying good deals, right? And where does that happen? Right up front in the negotiation, in the acquisition process. Buy a good deal, negotiate for the sake of negotiating, be a jerk. That's okay, it's part of the business, right?
What was the asking price?
324.
Okay, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
So Roberto looks like a nice guy, but he's a shark. I promise you, the dude is an executive. He's not playing around.
On the market before you actually.
I'd have to double check.
It was listed in September, you closed on it January 31st.
Yeah.
Nice.
Look at that. Okay.
Good for you.
It's really
What was
good.
your initial offer?
280.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So nonetheless, he didn't operate like a rookie on this one in the beginning, right? He definitely did his thing in the acquisition process. So caught a good deal. So we have, a few metrics that we think about. Everybody has their own metrics. So margin percentage. So Keely and I, we always preach, hey, we like 15% margin in our deals. That's a metric for us. Everybody comes up with their own. I was speaking with Chad before the meeting today. He says, hey, I want to make X amount per month on my projected hold time. Everybody has their own metric, right? So, but the key is have a metric so you can decide how to buy a good deal, right? And that's what Roberto did on this one. So walk us through the financials. Pretty impressive. I know you bought this one in cash, so let's make sure we point that out too.
Okay. Yeah, so the financials on this one, I'll go through this and I'll give some backstory as well to fill in some holes. I purchased the house for $240. The initial offer was $280, and on that Friday call, collectively $280 was a good number. Mark was like, yeah, you should try $250. I was like, I don't know, that's being too aggressive. $280 was rejected, and I was so mad. I was like, maybe I should have offered more. Like, I'm losing out on all these deals. Everybody's saying no to me. And then I was like, nope, I got to stick to the numbers. The numbers don't lie. So that deal fell through. I went back to them at $250. That was accepted. And I wanted an inspection report because what you see on the MLS was like just this picture. So when I toured the house, it was just smelly and just gross. And I'm like, I need to know what's behind the walls. I had no idea. So after the inspection, I said, hey, like there's a lot of things in here that need to be replaced, mechanicals, $240. And they're like, absolutely, let's take it. So that's how I landed at $240. And then I did get a little greedy. The seller wanted to delay closing for another 30 days, so I asked for another $5,000. And then they were like, nope, we'll just close when we said we're going to close, and we closed.
Nice.
Let's see. The rehab costs were $100,000. Total closing cost about $7,000, and then projected cost to resell $27,000. So all net, about $75K is what I'm projecting in profit here.
So I just want to point out something real quick for everybody. So if you guys are looking at similar deals and you're thinking about the closing costs, his closing costs up front were pretty cheap because he bought in cash. When you buy in cash, there's like zero closing costs, right? But when you buy with financing, they have to record that paperwork. There's all different. There are points up front on the lender, on the loan rather. So just consider that if you guys are thinking about making an offer on a house for $240, and you're like, hey, wait a second, Roberto's closing costs were X. There's a differential when you're buying with cash compared to financing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I typically think of closing costs as about 2% of the acquisition price. That's just title fees. So those are the legal documents to ownership. So I usually say about 2%. As you scale up in bigger price points, buying for 500, 700, 800,000, that you get economies of scale because certain costs are fixed. So that might go down to 1.5 or 1.25%. But in this like lower to mid-range price point, 2% is fair. But then you got to add your lender fees on top of that. So it's 2% for title, and then you might pay 2 points to the lender. So maybe 4% up front for your closing costs. Okay. Take us through.
Okay, so 75K. Usually when I'm at these on sites, I just want to see what are they making on this house, and it's like not thinking about all the stuff beforehand. 75K is like a tremendous amount of money for me. I'm very happy in my first flip. Some of the mistakes I made. So my pro forma was 70K, and you're like, how'd you get from 70 to 30? Like, where'd you go wrong? A lot of places, right? So the initial thought was taking the 55 mid rehab, $55 a square foot, roughly 75 or 70K on the rehab. I backed into a lot of line item costs via the rehab calculator. What I didn't do is I didn't account for certain mechanicals that were more than I thought. For not mechanicals, I guess, but plumbing, for example. And I wrote these down just to be very transparent. So my plumbing and bath, so to do all the bathrooms and all the plumbing, I was $8,000 off. And that was a big hit because I wanted to move the tub and shower. I swapped those out. And then I budgeted so low for like the Durock and everything else that goes into the shower, like hundreds of dollars. And that's kind of a lesson learned. I should have had somebody review it, and they would have told me right away I'm crazy. Like there's no way that is the cost of it. Electrical, I made some mistakes. When I first had the electrical guys in here, we just did some recessed lighting. They took the power from the chandelier. They killed a couple switches on me. Had I done some due diligence beforehand and know the layout of the electrical, I wouldn't have had them come back. So that was one cost. Then they had to come back on an urgent request because the cabinet guys were installing and I needed to run the wires for this. So I didn't plan that in my scope of work. I also didn't plan a separate breaker for the disposal. And I didn't plan a separate breaker for the microwave. So all those things kind of added up into $6,500 of mistakes that I made. And I think if I had a scope of work, I probably could have at least cut that in half. Even as a rookie, I probably should have got that cut in half. And the cabinets, you can see, there's pictures up here, you can see the old layout. But this was like a standard pantry. I upgraded that. I wanted white oak in here with the white shakers, just to make it a little bit more elevated. That was $1,500 more. I felt it was well spent. And then the bathroom vanities were about $1,000, $1,500 more than I thought. Both of the vanities are solid wood, which I didn't have to do, but I just thought they looked really nice and they fit the space really well. So going forward, I probably would cut back on those maybe if I could, but the cabinets I'm not going to cut back on. Yeah.
So in every project, guys, you're going to get to this point where you're making trade-offs, right? So some of them are financial trade-offs, or you're just deciding to invest in one area instead of another area. What you always want to do is make sure you're making justified ROI decisions, right? Like I'm spending my money wisely. I'm deciding that, hey, if I invest in these cabinets, that's going to pay me a return, right? I'm not investing in something for the sake of it just looking pretty or because I think it's right. I really want to think, hey, is that going to justify the return? And how do I assess that? I'm looking at the comparables, right? So that's what Roberto did here. He said, hey, I need to probably spend a little bit more here. And sometimes you're trying to stay ahead of the comps. Right? I just want to look slightly better than the comps so that it flies off the market pretty quickly. But nonetheless, as you get through these different areas of the projects of construction, you're definitely going to go off budget, guaranteed every time, even 10, 15 years into the business. But what you want to do is just take a very deliberate, intentional approach of justifying your investment decisions in the project.
I want to add a couple points to that real quick. So just from the resale side of it, but so 3 points. Number one is, like on the Friday call and just in general, we're always talking like the design scope, the design scope, the design scope. Having your plan up front when you have your contractors go out and bid is going to save you from those return trips, and it's going to save you, once they have you locked in as a client, then they can kind of charge you whatever they want for all of those change orders and those return trips, right? So something like the electrical plan, like even just kind of hand sketching your layout and noting like, I want a dishwasher, I want a microwave, I want this, I want that, and presenting that to the electrician so that if he misses something, then it's on him, right? Like, nope, we agreed that you were gonna put a microwave in here, you were gonna put a dishwasher. Also kind of helps you, it's probably kind of stressful when you're like, oh shit, I forgot about a dishwasher, I forgot about this, I forgot about that. So a little bit of like pre-planning those things helps you save money in the long run on change orders. Roberto mentioned flip-flopping like he overspent on plumbing because he reversed the bathroom tub and shower situations. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep,
So this
correct.
one had a shower in it and the master had a bath, right? And so when you guys, if you're not a realtor yourself, talk to a realtor that's walked hundreds of properties with buyers and ask their opinion on something like that, right? That was a very smart investment because when people, this is going to be a house probably with people with young kids or going to have a baby eventually, it's a family type home, they're going to want a bathtub in the guest bathroom, not in their master bath. They will forego the master bath, especially, you know, this is a smaller bathroom, but that would be a deal breaker for most buyers walking through this house if there's not a tub in that bathroom. So even though he overspent, that's helping him keep his buyer pool, right? People are not being deterred by the fact that this house doesn't have what they need to be able to function in the property. And then third thing I would say is, you know, the market right now, it's super important. Mark's mentioned like kind of staying ahead of the comps. So Roberto says, okay, well, I would probably cut back on some things. And I think like the wood vanities are beautiful. I don't think you should cut back, but you know, it could be something that you could cut back on. But in this market where things are slow, like your best shot at getting your price is going to be that it's prettier than all the other comps. So pay attention to what is going on in the market. What is your competition? What are buyers going to be walking through and comparing your house to? Because one of the main things that investors do, seasoned, new investors, it doesn't matter, like a huge mistake is they kind of just like operate inside of a bubble, right? They pick out the things they like and, you know, they comp the property and stuff like that, but they're not really like stacking their house up against the competition. But any realtor in this room will tell you, if I take a buyer out and I show them 6 houses, they are comparing your home to the other 5 houses that they viewed prior to coming into this one. And so you really want to make sure that you're taking care of anything that would deter buyers, like flip-flopping those bathrooms, right? And you want to make sure that you're being realistic with your pricing based off of what the competition is. So if you want to do a value strategy, like you don't have, like not everybody has to go ham on the design if that's not the expectation of the neighborhood, but don't do a value strategy and then think you're going to sell your house for more than something that's designed like this, right? And on the flip side of that, if everything on the market isn't designed as nice as this, he can push the price point up a little bit. So like our comp that just recently sold was in the 430s. This one's listed for 450 and it'll probably sell at or close to 450 because it looks like this. So, you know, just some kind of things to think about, especially in terms of, you know, where the market is right now.
You all for joining me today on my first flip. Really thankful for Mark and Keely, Above Asking, the community, and everybody that's helped me along this flip. House looks great, it's on the market, and hopefully we sell soon.
So this next question might be a little bit easier, but I still want to kick around some thoughts around it. But tell us how you financed the property, and then I'll kick around some thoughts.
Yeah, so fortunately, I was able to self-finance this deal. It was an all-cash purchase. What that allowed me to do is remove the stress of a loan. And it allowed me to take control of the full property, the scope of everything. And you know, I treated it like an investment, right? So if the money was stuck in the market, I'm earning 4% roughly, right? What can I make betting on myself? It has to be well above 4% for all the work and headaches. And so that's where I decided to take this in self-funding. Next project though, I do want to get a lender involved. I want to see what that process is, and hopefully I'm able to scale beyond just 1 or 2 flips at a time.
So what I think is awesome about that is, to Roberto's point, when you buy in cash for the first deal, it just, you can make a lot more mistakes, right? You know, if you're financing, so if we just think about this deal, right, he buys it for $240, so he's got to put 15% down on $240, and then he's borrowing the rest of the rehab. He's probably going to pay over the life of the loan, this 10-month hold period, 30 grand, right, in holding costs, just with the lender plus the points up front. So 30 grand, that eats into his margin big time. That makes it a no-go on the deal, right? So when we approved the deal, when we analyzed it all together, the cash is a big part of the strategy. Hey, I'm buying with cash. Hey, that makes it a good deal. Cash is king, guys, ultimately, right? If you can do your deals in cash, I encourage you to do them in cash, and to the point where you're so good that it just makes more sense to scale, which now Roberto's feeling more confident.
Yep.
I think he'll get to the next deal. But honestly, if you can get into your first deal cash, Keely and I bought our first deal cash. It was, when I ran the numbers before we came in, All the mechanics of the deal were exactly the same, except we're old, so it was inflation adjusted. So we bought ours like, I don't know, 14 years ago, whatever it was. So it all the same. We made 40 grand on our first deal. You adjust for inflation, you're at 75 grand. Like everything is just the same, right? So I like this deal. This is a cool deal. First deal in cash. Made his money, made the mistakes, and yes, now he's got the confidence to go on to the second deal and use some leverage, right? But I think that's a big part of it, right? If you're analyzing deals, make sure you consider the financing as a part of your decision process, right?
Yeah, and then, sorry guys.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the rehab costs. So, the 70,000 that you originally estimated, I think is, like based on what you thought was gonna happen, was a really great deal for like all the finishings and everything. Who did you use for the work?
Different trades. So I self-managed it, the whole
Okay.
thing. So no GC involved. So
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the project management
okay,
process.
yeah. So I lost 2 months in this project. First month I lost was vetting GCs. So I had probably 10 plus GCs come out to the property, give me quotes. Part of the error I had was that I didn't have a scope of work outlined because I didn't know what I didn't know. So their quotes weren't equal to equal. They were, and it wasn't to the fit to the needs of this particular build. Some were high level, you know, it's 120 grand, it's 150 grand, kind of take it or leave it. Others were very helpful. They just took a while to get back their quotes. And so when I was looking at 120, 150, I was like, there's just no way. I'm just gonna try and do it myself and figure it out. So the 70 was like bare bones, skate by. I knew I was not gonna hit that at all. So when I did the budget, I looked at the mid and then I looked at the max. And if I fell within that, I was okay with that, for me personally. Now, the next flip, I'm gonna target like 70 or whatever the budget says, plus or minus 10 to 15%, and I'll be more comfortable with that. But for this one, I just felt like the range, I was comfortable with the range.
Yeah.
Like I'm not upset that I spent 100 when I budgeted 70.
So I think Roberto said he lost a month on the project one for vetting the contractor. I think that's normal and it's smart. I'd rather you find the right contractor and not overpay by 50 grand or 30 grand, right? So very smart decision. But he had mentioned in the pre-call this like design inertia. I think it was well worth it. Like him losing a month, the design came out amazing. I think he's giving Keely a run for her money. But so that's just a part of it, guys. So a couple things. As you're scaling, right, that design inertia, you're probably going to run into that every single time, right? So as you're scaling, maybe you hire a designer, or maybe if your strategy is such, you just keep the same finishes, right, for every property. Even he can just take this design, simplify things, and just do this on every single property. If he's batting in the same square footage, same price point, same buyer persona, right? Nothing wrong with it, right? This would take a lot of headache off of him if he chose to do this micro shaker idea, white oak shaker, white oak floors, right? He just did it over and over and over again. So, of course, you know, these are all decisions that you make as a business owner. But, you know, 2 months lost on this one. He could afford it because he bought it cash. But ultimately, in the end, you know, great product, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Go for it.
So you said you self-managed. Was any of this work permit?
Yes, the major mechanical. So the AC was permitted and the water heater was permitted. Nothing else required a permit.
So you didn't have to do a new roof or anything like that?
No.
Nice.
Roof's 2017. It's in good shape. It's a yellowish color, which I wasn't a fan of, but didn't require a replacement.
Okay. And you didn't change, like, I guess, any of the footprint or convert any spaces, so you didn't...
Not enough to warrant a permit. The only thing that was changed was there's a kind of an old school pantry area here, and so we just removed that and put another pantry there. Yeah, the layout was really nice for a remodel.
So when you self-managed, did you have a hard time finding contractors to come in and do all the individual things? Because this was your first flip, so how did you navigate that process versus just handing it off to a GC that has all those crews ready to go?
A lot of reach out. I probably stopped by 10, 15 different sites that were having work done, and I would just pop in and start asking questions. And who are you? What are you doing? What trade are you? What's the cost per square foot? So I've learned a lot from vetting those 10 GCs, and then I was able to use that.
Did you guys hear that, Jim? He just went into other people's sites and started talking to people. Right? That's a jewel, guys, right? I think I've heard Khalil say that too. Like, hey, I just stopped by and just yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, sometimes they're like, "Whoa, who are you?" But I'm like, "Hey, I got a house down the street." Yeah, they think I'm an inspector or something, ICE or something. ICE.
Oh,
like, hey, man, there's sometimes they're like, "No habla español." I'm like, "No, man, like, We're gonna talk because I can. I can Google Translate
We're
with
gonna
you.
make this work.
And they were all great. They were all great. I found a few subs that way and was able to bring them in. Very straightforward. I didn't follow all the rules of like getting contracts in place, but it all worked out for me.
Any other questions for Roberto? All right, so I want to say I'm so proud of Roberto on so many levels. I don't know if you guys are hearing him talk. He's like, yeah, I probably want to do like 20 a year. I think like 5 or 10 at a time, that's probably manageable, right? He's also talking about opening up a wholesaling arm so he can find deals. Like he's literally first deal in, first year in, deciding, hey, I could do this, I can take action, I can change my family's life in real estate, guys. It's possible. Even if this is not your world, you're not a construction person, I promise you, use your resources, take action. Roberto, of course, is exceptionally smart, but you guys are all smart too, right? You guys are pretty smart.
Hey, there's a lot of smart people in here doing things that I didn't do
Yeah, that's right.
in real estate at their age and my age. So,
Yeah. So let's give a big round of applause for Roberto for finishing his first point.
I have a couple points too.
You have a couple points?
Yeah, a couple final points.
Okay, yeah. All right, he wants to finish off with a couple points for you guys.
All right, so there's a few people that have not done a flip yet. So a couple words of advice to you is first, show up and take action, right? The second one is come to the Friday calls, get your deal analyzed, right? Then make sure you have a scope of work, a design scope and a full budget, right? If those scare you, ask to partner with somebody. If I were to go back and do this, I would have asked many people to review my finances because I thought I'm a finance guy. I know exactly what I'm doing. I was wrong on many line items, right? So ask somebody from the group to review it. And then have somebody walk the property for you, right, or with you, so you can point out, or they can point out certain things. Hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, that's going to be a permitted job, or this is going to cost you probably $5,000 more than that. Then you can have that final scope of work to present to GCs or subcontractors, so they're all bidding on the exact same thing, and you can compare which one you'd rather work with. And if I didn't mention, like, try and follow along with somebody. So if somebody has a flip that's active, that's willing to open up their books, I would be. If I had an active flip right now that's ongoing, follow along, learn what you want, take advantage of any information.
You guys
It's
hear
an
that
open
offer?
book.
That's a big offer right there because he's going to do more. So.
I'll put you to work though. Put you to work.
That's right. So again, guys, so excited for Roberto and his journey, just taking off, just getting going. Sky's the limit, man.
I
So
appreciate
proud
it.
of you.
Thank you guys.
All right, so a couple housekeeping items. So we have, I don't think we see you guys until next month for the quarterly event in person. We'll be at JC Newman, fully catered, badass catering, drinks, awesome speaker talking about the evolution of EBOR, what's happening with Gasworks. Do not miss the JC Newman event. Another surprise, October, first week of October, we have Thatch Wynn. Anybody heard of Thatch Wynn?
Yes.
All right, Thatch Wynn, 2 million followers. He's an ADU strategist, $100 million portfolio. Awesome human being, has agreed to come speak to our group to talk about his
He's
journey.
going to speak on Zoom.
I'm sorry,
Not that cool.
he's only, that's future state, guys, like a year or two. Give us a year or two. But he's going to come talk to us on Zoom, fireside chat. If you guys were on the Trevor Motch call, that was amazing. I think this one's going to be equally amazing, if not better. So make sure you guys plug into the Zoom calls. Join the Friday calls so you can get rich like Roberto. We appreciate you guys tapping in, engaging, being here in person, and we're going to force you into a selfie,
A selfie,
right
please.
now. Everybody get in here.
Everybody.
Everybody get in, get in,
And
get
then
in.
go grab one more coffee.
Yeah,
Throw it in there, so.
Bro, I spread on that. It's freaking amazing. For his first project, that's even more amazing, man.
Yeah.
So he locked it up at the beginning at a great price, so it can make it like no lose situation. And I love it.
Awesome.
Well, like instantly when you walk in there, you're thinking like top of the market, nice, like this is super above, normal grade. So they did a really good job with just like that, vibe when you walk into the house. Awesome.